Today I have with me Craig Taylor, Communications Technologist, formerly with the Learning and Development team at UUK. Craig's been working on the e-learning authoring system. Craig, welcome.
Thanks.
As I understand it, Craig, UUK is celebrating its first anniversary in terms of e-learning authoring systems. Can you tell me why we decided to go down a self-authoring route instead of bringing in an external provider?
Yeah, of course. When I first arrived at Urenco about 3 years ago, the significant majority of the e-learning that we passed on to our learners was outsourced. That brought with it a number of significant challenges. It was very costly to do that. It meant that the content was off the shelf, it was very generic, it wasn't caponized, it wasn't Urencofied. Any time that we wanted to modify or change any of the content, it was costing us. And also from a learning perspective, from the learner's perspective, they were having to remember various different passwords and log-on details from one year to the next, from 3, 4, 5 different providers. So it was leading to a real challenge just to get into the e-learning for the learners, let alone actually undertake the e-learning. By bringing the authoring system in-house, it's much cheaper to produce e-learning, it's much quicker to produce the e-learning. If ever we want to make any amendments or tweaks to it, we can do it within minutes as opposed to within weeks. The learners no longer have to remember any passwords or logins, and from learning and development's perspective, they only have one database to go into now to look for results, as opposed to 3, 4, 5, 6 different databases.
Okay, so when we talk about e-learning, what subjects are we actually covering?
We're covering the same sort of subjects that we used to cover externally, so statutory training events, fire safety, complying with COSH, display screen equipment. We're also using it to deliver some very basic introductory e-learning to IT systems. But what we've also evolved into over the past 12 months is using the e-learning for pieces of content that we'd never dreamed up 12 months ago.
Oh, right.
We're using it as part of the assess, train, assess process. So when people can be assessed online, they're being assessed online, and the basic radiation workers course is a good example of being assessed online. And the ATPT project team have also seen the benefits of assessing online as well, and they're using the assessments as part of the verification and accreditation process for the ATPT programme.
Right. So, I mean, we talk about benefits, but what type of benefits have we seen over the last 12 months?
Well, the clear demonstrable benefits are based in terms of costs. In a little over 12 months, there have been around 400 different learners have logged into the system and have passed a piece of statutory e-learning. There have been far more logins than that, but sometimes people have been logging in just for some information or just to undertake some e-learning that's not statutory. Oh. So there have been 400 statutory pieces of e-learning, and that's equated to just over £10,000 worth in cost savings had we been delivering that using external vendors based upon 400 users times the average external license cost. So there's been about a £10,000 saving in 12 months.
So not only has there been a cost saving, the fact that you're saying people have gone in for information, it's an information resource as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Before we'd have had to, every time somebody logged in to just have a quick reminder about how to send an email or how to set up their calendar, that would have cost a license usage. By bringing this information in-house, people can log in, use it as an information repository, quickly come back out the system again, and it hasn't cost Urenco a penny for them to do that.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we have a well-established and kind of fast-paced e-learning system. But what other types of technology or e-learning technology are there out there that are available?
It's a really good question, that, Neil, and a lot of people typify e-learning as what we do here at Urenco, which is sitting in front of a computer screen, clicking that next button and being taken through a very linear stage series of screens to acquire some information. But e-learning can be anything and everything that uses some form of technology. So reading a web page, listening to a podcast, going on the internet to do some research, looking at a video, looking at DVD. You could argue that the way that this footage is going to be used is an example of e-learning as well. Urenco's already started to introduce interactive whiteboards and more wide-ranging throughout the organisation, and they're down in the training centre as we speak. But there are also plans to collaborate with learning and development and any other department indeed to look at knowledge-sharing platforms, informal learning platforms, virtual learning environments and podcasts to hopefully make a much better use of the current and emerging technologies to not only enhance and enrich the learning experience but to improve communications overall across the site.
Right. I mean, some people would say that, or would ask the question, is Urenco UK ready for this sort of technology? You know, bearing in mind the age profile that's on site. What would your answer be to that?
It's a really good question. It's one that I've heard asked in a number of different forums, and I think it's important to sort of recognise the fact that whilst we might have a particular demographic of workforce, I would struggle to believe that people in their personal lives, in their social lives, don't use the internet to research holidays, to book a holiday, to book a flight, to book cinema tickets or theatre tickets. These types of technologies that are being used external to Urenco are just the same types of technologies, just the same sort of learning curve as we are looking to use within Urenco itself. So the fact that we perhaps have a particular age demographic, I'm not sure really should be a challenge. And it's also important to recognise as well that as the workforce moves on and we have a continual intake of new people, these are people who've come from secondary education, primary education, from colleges, institutes and universities. And having done a lot of research into the way that technology is used in education, schools and colleges and institutes and universities are really getting to grips with using technology to enhance communications and to enhance learning. So I think it's important that Urenco keeps an eye on that and makes sure that there isn't a disconnect when we start getting people arriving in Urenco and their expectations on the way they've learnt how to learn and they've learnt how to communicate, we can match ourselves with.
Okay, and I'm guessing that we'll be using the same sort of user-friendly profiles with these learning systems, so it'll be easy for people to navigate around the system.
Absolutely. Where possible, we'll try and use what's being used in the external market, so there's an absolute clean interface between what people are used to and what they're expected to use in the workplace. Now, that may not always be possible due to security reasons, due to infrastructure reasons, but whatever tools we look at in the future will be, a heavy consideration will be how user-friendly it is and how closely it mirrors some of the tools that people are perhaps used to using back in their social lives and back in their personal lives.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to seeing the developments of that in the future, and thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Neil.